Welcome into episode 32 of the Gold Standard College Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Big Papa and Bobby Hoops. This episode, as always, is sponsored by our good friends at Turtleson. Please use code AwesomeWhite15 at checkout to get 15% off your next total order. And, of course, call our good friends at John H. Coleman, a.k.a. Bobby Hoops, at his daytime job. That's how he supports his family full-time and support my family via side hustle, via Turtleson. If you don't support us with work, then do you actually support us? Because that's how we put food on the table. That's why our families love us. So if you do us a quick favor and, just make sure to do those things whenever you get the chance. Now, with today's actual episode, we were going to pump this out on Sunday, but, in ironic timing, my good friends who have earned Donkey of the Week, Xfinity, have earned that spot because they decided to, whatever reason, there was an outage and our internet was down from 11 a.m. to 11:45 p.m. So couldn't do it there. And unfortunately, Bobby Hoops was a little bit under the weather, had the energy enough to push out a voice memo, and here we are. And that's why we're going voice memo, because you deserve content. Content does not sleep, as we often say, and you deserve it. The faithful listeners who keep showing up and actively text us, even if it's a little harsh of, hey, where's my content? Like, honestly, I understand it and I respect it. Again, a little harsh, but okay, got it. Hoops and I, we're going to basically talk about a couple topics that have jumped out to us, similar, but essentially, hey, any team or person, Dan Hurley, who've jumped out to us, good or bad, and we want to talk about it real quick. Probably talk about some teams that have really caught our eyes now that we're pretty much halfway through league play, or getting there close to. And then we'll talk about our respective teams. Hoops, maybe recap a little bit of the win against Mississippi State. Probably spend more time talking about that unfortunate road trip to Auburn. I will do the same, and then end it with, this is the Cats pissing down their legs. 2 games in a row, which is going to set up an absolute barn burner at the Food City Center at the Tommy Bowl, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. tip-off. Whoo, doggy. It's going to be a big one. So, we love that you're here. Thanks for tuning in once again. And for now, I will turn it over to my boy Bobby Hoops. Take it away, sir.
Yo, it's Bobby Hoops. I don't know if I'm going first or if I'm going second here. So if I'm going first, I'm sure Big Papa's already set the stage for what we're doing here tonight a little bit, but I'm just going to run through a few things that caught my mind from over the weekend. Talk about UT Auburn, a few other little things. What a weekend. What a week of hoops it was. I mean, to me, the thing that has been so interesting all season, outside, obviously, I'm a Tennessee guy, SEC guy. That's what we talk about on this pod most of the time. But college basketball as a whole, it has been fascinating to watch what is happening to Dan Hurley at UConn. I mean, you go here. I feel like he was a pretty respected coach before UConn won their first title 2 years ago. He wasn't anywhere like in the upper echelon, but like him and his brother Bobby coached together for a few years, and they're always known for being fiery and, really emotional on the sidelines. Lots of coaches are. And I would think a lot of people would say that the last couple years through this back-to-back championship run that UConn's been on, that Hurley, there's kind of like a charm to it, at least for me. Like, it's just kind of funny to watch this guy just lose his mind as he coaches the best team in college basketball to back-to-back championships, and that he's still just going crazy on the sidelines and super animated and just crazy. He's nuts. I would say there's been something kind of charming about it. And I don't know what's happened this year. I mean, obviously, like we've talked about, that this UConn team is still obviously really good, and a top 25 team and whatnot, but probably not as good as they were the last couple of years. I think and it's shown this year, they are a step down from what they were. And man, all the screaming and crying, and it kind of turns ugly a little when you're not winning. And that's like one part of it. But it's just been the way he's like. I mean, we talked in previous episodes about there was the whole deal with the Maui Invitational this year, where UConn, they were the heavy favorites to win that tournament, and they lose 3 straight and get bounced like really unceremoniously, and lost a couple games that were really tight that they should have probably won. And what's Dan Hurley gonna say? And he goes on the long thing about how, yeah, we'll never play in a tournament like this again. There's no way. Like, blaming the format of the tournament and like not taking accountability for the team. And that was kind of like, and in one of those games, he arguably blew it himself because he got himself teed up within the final minute of a game by just dog cussing a ref. And it was like, man, not only did you kind of cost your team one of these games, but now you're not really taking accountability for it. And it was kind of like, that's the first of a few, like, oh, what's going on here, Dan? Like, sure, your team, you can't have the best team year in, year out, but like, you kind of sound like a little bit of a baby. And it was even a few days after they got home from the match, and he's still talking about it. And how it's a bad setup and it's poorly designed, and they won't do that again. And it's kind of, wow, man, like, let it go. Let's move on. Turn the page. And, I think things kind of settled down for him a little bit, and yada, yada. Well, last Tuesday night, UConn is playing Butler. Butler not having a great season. They have a losing record. I think they were like 8-11 going into the game, and UConn ends up winning the game in overtime by 2 points, and tighter game than it should have been for UConn. But the story of the game was at one point, Hurley's out on the court arguing with an official, trying to plead his case about something. I guess the refs sort of finished with this conversation, and he kind of turns and starts to walk back onto the court. And Hurley follows him out on the court and says, quote, "Don't turn your back on me. I'm the best coach in the effing sport." And of course, he didn't say effing. He said the full word. I'm the best coach in the effing sport. And wow, that got a lot of play. That clip has been passed around. It's definitely gone viral. Wow. Tell us how you really feel, Dan Hurley. Austin and I were texting about it, and I was to ask him, like, I know that I think it's safe to say Dan Hurley's not the first college basketball coach to ever probably think that, yeah, I'm the best coach. I'm the best at this. You kind of have to think that way, I would think, if you're going to be as successful as these guys are. But I have never seen a coach just outwardly say the quiet part out loud and scream it at an official in the middle of a game. Don't turn your back on me. I'm the best coach in the effing sport. And whoa, like, I'm sure, like, the first name I probably thought of was Coach K at Duke. Of like, as far as I know, he's never screamed at an official like that. But it was understood. Of course, I'm Coach K. I'm the best coach. So, it's expected that you will give me what I believe is deserving and fair for me because I'm the best. I could see Coach K kind of worming his way through that conversation through his career. But nothing like this. I mean, Dan Hurley just, woo. And after the game, he's asked about it, and he's kind of like, I'm no victim. I bring this upon myself, but, just once, I just wish that the cameras would show the opposing coach as much as they show me. And he goes on talking about, Thad Matta, the coach for Butler, that he's way outside the coaching box and, nobody's talking to him. Well, you know what, Dan Hurley, Thad Matta is not the one screaming that I'm the best effing coach in the sport. So, you can't have it both ways. You can't say you're the best and then be like, well, but look at everybody else. Don't just look at me. Man, it's just been a wild, wild turn of events in less than 1 year from hoisting a back-to-back title. And Dan Hurley has looks right now he's living long enough to become the villain, as Two-Face would say. But yeah, that was crazy, really crazy. Something to continue watching the rest of the year. Couple other things that caught my eye, mostly from Saturday, just scores wise. The Houston-Kansas game. Wow, what a game. Double overtime. Houston gets their first big win of the season on the road in Lawrence, Kansas, and Houston really needed that. They've obviously they're a top 10 team. They're 16-3 on the year. The Big 12 is a great conference, but Houston really didn't have any big wins yet. All of their wins had come just at the expense of beating up on some bad teams, and then their 3 losses were all to good teams. So it was kind of like, all right, Houston, at some point, if we're building your resume for March, if we're trying to make a case for yourself when it comes to getting a high seed. I mean, they're definitely a team that is going to be shooting to try to be a 1 seed. You got to start racking up some resume wins, and this was a big one for them. Winning at Kansas on the road, coming back in the final couple minutes to tie the game, and then to come back again in overtime to force double overtime, and then to pull it out. I mean, it was super duper impressive by Houston. Jawan Roberts with a fantastic game, had 24 points for Houston. We've on this pod, we've kind of mentioned it a couple times about Kansas. I just don't think that they have what it takes to go win 6 games in a row in March. Which is crazy for how talented they are. But you have games like this last night. They were up. They were up by 6 points with 14 seconds left in overtime. Up 6 with 14 seconds left. AJ Storr gets fouled, who was the big $1 million transfer from, I think it was Wisconsin. He goes to the line, clanks both free throws. Houston comes down, hits a 3. So down 3. I think it was 6-7 seconds left. Kansas calls a timeout. We got to get this figured out. We got to get this ball in. We're only up. We had a chance to pretty much ice it, go up 7-8 points. They missed the free throws. Houston hits the 3. We're only up 3. Got to get this ball inbounded. They take a timeout, draw it up. What do they do right away? Throw it away. Quick 3. Houston, bang, tie game. I mean, it was, and then obviously they go on to win in double overtime. The ESPN game cast on the app showed that with 14 seconds left in the game, with Kansas going to the line, chance to go up by 7 or maybe even 8, showed an odds for Houston at the time before those free throws. Houston had a 0.4% chance to win the game with 14 seconds left, and then they go on to miraculously hit 2 threes and get a steal. I mean, unbelievable win for Houston. Unbelievable loss for Kansas. I mean, you've got to be sick if you're a Jayhawk today. I mean, just a crazy loss in a crazy game. Let's see what else around the league. I'm sure my boy will go into detail about the Cats, unfortunately, for some, falling at Vanderbilt. All I want to say, just because I know what it's like very recently to go lose in that crazy gymnasium that Vanderbilt has over there. I don't really ever consider Vanderbilt a rival until we lose to them, and then I'm sick, and I don't really care about beating Vanderbilt in pretty much anything. Maybe baseball, but I don't really care. We should beat them. But when they beat us, man, it sucks. Those rich kids in their private school, and we shouldn't. It's the worst. It's the worst losing to Vanderbilt. Other game of note, before I get to Tennessee real quick, holy moly Texas A&M. Texas A&M was up 43-25 in Austin, and Trey Johnson goes off for Texas in the second half. They pretty much flip the scoring entirely, come back from 22 down, score 45 points in the second half to Texas A&M's 26, and win the game in the final seconds on a Tremont Mark layup to pull off the miraculous upset over Texas A&M. That's, obviously a huge rivalry, Texas and A&M, and A&M, man, what's going on? At the time, I think they showed that it was the biggest blown lead, I think, in Texas A&M history, or in the last 15, 20 years, something like that. Bad loss. Texas, I think, is a little better than what they've showed this year. This Trey Johnson, he's going to be probably a lottery pick. He's shown, especially in this game, the ability to just light it up when the team needs him. But goodness gracious, that's not what you want, Texas A&M. That's not what you want. Blowing a 22-point lead to your rival in their house. Sorry, Dad. Excuse me. Okay. Tennessee, Auburn. Went into this game feeling like I think they were favored by 6 at the time of tip, and John I. Broom's first game back after spraining his ankle, being out for a few games, and we had it was reported that Jordan Gainey had flu-like symptoms, and Igor Milicic was a little banged. I think he had a little bit of a knee injury, and Auburn's obviously they're the number 1 team in the country, and they're gonna stay that way after their 53-51 win in Auburn. I went into the game thinking, sure, we can beat them. It's going to be crazy hard. I just don't want to get killed. And what it was, I think I'm still a little traumatized from the 30-point loss to Florida. This game was, I don't know that I've ever seen. I feel like usually when you watch a game that's as low scoring as this, this is a ugly rock fight and ugly basketball, and if you felt that way watching this game, I can't really fault you that much. The shooting wasn't great. Let's see, Tennessee shot 31.5% as a team. Auburn shot 31% as a team. The teams combined to shoot 7 for 42 from 3 in this game. So definitely not a great shooting display. But to me, you have to watch that game and just tip your cap to the defenses. I mean, no one had it easy. No one had open looks. No one could take a shot pretty much without a hand in their face. these two teams are so good defensively, and it truly felt like any shot that went in felt huge in this game, just because both teams are just going all out defensively. It was pretty impressive to watch. You're used to that from Tennessee and Rick Barnes teams. I mean, Auburn and Ken Palm and all that showed like they're by far the most efficient offense, and we've talked on this pod a few times about how it's kind of like, how do you want it with Auburn? They can beat you kind of any way. You do this, all right, we've got an answer for it. So it was pretty encouraging to me to see Tennessee really stifle this Auburn offense in their barn. At which, again, that's not surprising. But so all that to say, yeah, I just I wanted it to be close. I wanted us to have a shot at the end. That happened. We had a shot at the end. Man, it's easy to say that before the game because it comes down to the wire. We have the lead, 51-47, with about a minute and a half left, and that's a tough loss. That's just really tough. When you have the lead late against the number one team in the country in their house, and you don't find a way to pull it out. That's just frustrating. I mean, there's plenty to point to as far as the team just not shooting well. It's hard to not be a little bit of a bitter Tennessee fan and say, man, Auburn just seemed to get all the bounces to go their way. And that happens sometimes. I mean, like on the go-ahead three from, what's his name here? Miles Kelly hit the go-ahead three with under a minute left on a play where they got exactly what they wanted from the play. They got a screen and roll with Tahad Pettiford and John Ibroom. And they get exactly the play they drew up. Get the ball to John Ibroom going to the hoop. He's National Player of the Year candidate right now. That's exactly what you want in that situation. Tennessee plays great defense on the play. Akpar gets the big block. And wouldn't you know it, he blocks it right back into John Ibroom's hands, who immediately kicks it out to a wide open Miles Kelly, who, to his credit, made the shot, made the big three to go up. I mean, it was just one of those plays where it's like Tennessee did everything right defensively on that play. And everyone was coming in to crash the boards and help, which is exactly what you're supposed to do. They get the big block, just tough bounce, goes right back to Broom, kick out, three-pointer. And then, Tennessee comes back down the other way, and Milicic, I understand some fans didn't like the play. Milicic, who didn't shoot very well in this game, hasn't shot great all year. He gets an opportunity, gets the ball kind of just outside the three-point line, kind of has a straight line to the hoop. And he was aggressive, and I can't fault him for it. I think that's the right play. He tried to take it to the hoop, gets blocked by, I think it was Cardwell for Auburn. Either Cardwell or Broom had the big block. I mean, it was just a good play. They made a good defensive play. I know other people you'd like to see in those moments when you're down a point, under a minute left, that, Ziegler or Lanier taking the shots there. Gainey had fouled out at that point, so he's the other guy you'd probably want taking shots like that late in the game. So I can't fault Milicic for being aggressive there. He's capable, despite not shooting well lately. I think, you got to keep going. You got to keep being aggressive. You got to keep shooting. So I can't fault him for that. And then, they don't get that shot to drop. Auburn goes down the other way and makes one of two free throws. We come down, 9 seconds left. Call the timeout. I'm thinking, all right, you got plenty of time to drop whatever that perfect play is for you. To me, it's you either draw something up for Chaz Lanier to run around a few screens. You have enough time on the clock with 9 seconds left to get him open for the big shot. And if you're not going to do that, and I know Jay Billis on the broadcast, he was all for this, and I think it was a smart move, is getting the ball to Ziegler, bring Okpara up to set a screen, because he's going to bring John Ibroom with him and get a switch with Broom guarding Ziegler. And that's a total mismatch. Ziegler blew by him a few times. So let's either get Lanier open for the shot or let's get Ziegler switched onto Broom and take him one-on-one. We don't do either of those things. Quick inbounds pass to Ziegler in the corner, who takes a contested three. Almost made it. And unfortunately, we don't. Rebound bounces far away. Auburn throws it down the court. They run out the clock. They win. And I understand that, like, the thought behind this, you take the quick three, hope it goes in. If you miss, that gives you the opportunity to get the offensive rebound and put something up to try to tie it. So I respect going for the win there, especially if you're on the road in their house. Let's not go to overtime. Let's just win the game right now. Man. It's hard for me not to be like, oh man, you have 9 seconds to work with. Why bomb? Why, rush a corner three that's contested? I'm fine with Ziegler being the one taking that shot. He's the most confident player on the team. He's not afraid of those moments. So, overall, I can't be that frustrated with that loss. It's the number one team in the country. Auburn's clearly the best. If between them and Duke, it's like, yeah, that's the best team in the country. We had a chance to beat them in their house. We came really darn close. We probably should have won. There's not even to mention, I haven't even said it yet, but with that minute and a half left, when John Ibroom clearly fouls Okpara, clearly fouls him, has two hands on both Okpara's shoulders, pulls him backwards. Okpara he traveled. Yes, he did travel, but he was being fouled. Refs don't call it. That was a huge, huge swing for Auburn in that moment. Us not getting that call. So it was just one of those games where you played it well despite not shooting well. You had your shot. The bounces just went Auburn's way. Doesn't excuse it. We're gonna be fine going forward. I'd love to have that last minute and a half back. But moving forward, got Kentucky on Tuesday. Your boy and Big Papa will be in the house. We've never watched a Tennessee-Kentucky game together somehow. All these years of friendship and talking ball, we've never watched a Tennessee-Kentucky game together, and we will be there in person at the Tommy Bowl. Looking forward to it. This is Bobby Hoops.
That is correct. The Husky boys will be together. First time ever, as Bobby Hoops said. And funny enough, in the Tommy Bowl, live and in action, watching the cats and the balls get after it. If you really knew me, one of my favorite things to do on this side of heaven is actually go to sporting events. For whatever reason, that gives me juice. I just love the theatric nature of ball games, the electricity, the way the game can go up and down, especially college basketball, so many highs and lows. Just because a team's up 20 points doesn't mean that you're necessarily out unless you're just, quite frankly, a dog of a team. And if you're up 20, then you can almost just count it as a dub. But I think over the last couple of years, we've all kind of noticed a trend where it doesn't really matter. That you've got to keep putting your foot on the gas until probably the last 5 minutes. If you're up that many points, then you're probably safe. But even then, until the clock hits 000, keep playing. I want to give a couple shout outs and dogs of the week. because I'm doing a little side-by-side action right here of watching Duke and NC State, which is Duke suspect? No, probably not. They're honestly probably going to sweep the ACC and go 20-0 in the league. Yeah, I just struggled at Wake Forest the other day, and I was like, maybe you stink. But they really don't. They just had a really bad game. Figured it out against Wake Forest at Winston-Salem, and even on a horrible shooting night with both teams, they got the job done. But no, I actually want to give a shout-out to Kim Caldwell. Her Lady Vols are playing South Carolina here at home tonight, and Kim Caldwell gave birth last week. She's coaching. So, yeah, shout out Kim Caldwell, Dog of the Week. Would have completely understood if she was like, I'm taking leave and y'all can figure it out for the rest of the season. Like, if that were me, I probably would have done that. But, yeah, shout out to her. Only shout out to her team if they would give. You tell me you can't give a little bit more effort than your coach who just gave birth a week ago and you're down 67-56? Come on, now. So, yeah, shout out to Kim. Man, I think a couple of things that I want to talk about, and I'll probably save more of my thoughts on the Kentucky team. I think that's the stuff that's kind of just jumped out to me if you're like, hey, what's been kind of picking your brain on college basketball as a whole. It's honestly, and this includes Kentucky, unfortunately. It actually has to do with recruiting. So I have been weirdly impressed and also annoyed by how recruiting has really, maybe it hasn't really changed landscapes so much because of, like, now with NIL, I think it's just more like it's on the table kind of conversation, right? It's like, it's not under the table. It's not, let me call my bag man. We'll shop around, figure it out kind of stuff, handshake, whatever, agreements. Well, handshake agreements are still unfortunately a thing rather than getting contracts. But I think kids and families are learning the hard way with NIL and some schools who aren't able to pay the money that they guaranteed, Indiana. So, North Carolina. But, so Caleb Wilson, I think he was the number one ranked power forward out of high school, recently chose to commit to North Carolina over Kentucky, at least on television. And I will say, and I don't think that there's anybody who listens to our show who is in burner ball from Discord purposes. So I think it's safe to say it. I can say it here and know it's in our community. Caleb Wilson basically committed to North Carolina back in like November. What has become maybe more frustrating is he had signed a contract with a sports agency called Clutch, which is run by Rich Paul. We've talked about it. Rich Paul's, best friends with LeBron, all that kind of stuff. So basically, if you run with Clutch, there's a reason why. They see you as like one of the best players in the country. Easy segue into getting into the league, make money, aka they make money, good partnership. But also with that said, Clutch, I guess understandably, like, uses the advantage of like, hey, if you want to sign with one of our guys, like, you got to cough up money. I'm great with that. Like, I want kids to get paid. I don't care how much it costs. But having heard in the background that when it came down to it, Caleb ended up committing to North Carolina for less money, but Hubert Davis ended up selling him and his family on being the guy. And it was a very weird stance because Caleb had verbally, and his parents had verbally all communicated to the Pope and staff that, hey, we actually love the system. This makes sense. Definitely think we can, partner here. The NIL piece is great. Kentucky's really got that information, several donors on board, even with the revenue sharing coming soon, starting next season. They're in a really good spot. So it was odd that you would take that all because Hubert Davis said you can be the man, which I was like, well, I guess if you're 18 and you're sold on being the man and not being a piece of a whole, that the system is really great. It runs efficiently, like, and observed with professional scouts, coaches all over the place, right? Whatever. So, like, yeah, was I frustrated that Caleb Wilson essentially committed to North Carolina silently in November, or what did I say? Yeah, I think I said November. And then, like, Clutch was for the next 2 months trying to use that as a bargaining chip to get more money. Yeah, it's actually really annoying. Because all it kept doing was delaying. I'm guessing Clutch kept telling Caleb Wilson, you keep delaying the announcement so, like, we can keep haggling out and get you more money. So, again, ended up going for less money, technically, at the moment. I'm sure he'll get other deals through North Carolina. For a coach that, like, quite frankly, and maybe this is maybe my big piece, college basketball, Hubert Davis stinks. Like, are you kidding me right now? His freaking team, I don't even know if they are 500 in the league right now. Like, the boys at Chapel Hill are not doing good. And Hubert Davis is legit on the hot seat. There's scuttlebutt via the Discord and Burner Ball that Hubert keeps it up and they keep losing games to the likes of Stanford and whatnot. Like, he could be gone. Does that mean Caleb Wilson decommits? I don't know. Maybe not. He might just stick with Carolina because it's the name brand and still gets to be the guy. If coach coming in pitches the same thing, same mindset to Caleb, then okay, cool. But, you know, I could see a decommitment. But with how frustrating watching the behind the scenes stuff played out, I just almost am like, oh, God. I don't envy people right now who are, especially like teams who have hired a general manager to run operations, especially on the NIL stuff, negotiating with agents who don't care, like don't really care for their client. They're just looking for an easy payday. And it's like known that NIL agents are making more percentage-wise than agents who represent professional athletes in the NBA, which is wild to me. Absolutely wild that they would charge a higher commission rate. But I guess until stuff is set with Congress, you still the Wild West and will continue to be until something's done. So, yeah, shout out to you, Hubert Davis. You lucky SOB. Like, you're on the desperation train and whatever. Good for you. Pope and them will, have to figure it out. And where it is, they'll probably use I think that the number was close to $2 million that they were going to offer Caleb Wilson to come play. I'm like, okay, now you've got like $2 million that you can use for transfers and go $1 million a piece if you want to do that. There's ways to go about it, but it stinks for now. Dumb to lose a recruit in that manner versus if he'd already committed in November, you could say, like, why didn't you just do it then? But my guesses are my guesses with Clutch and so on. I want to switch gears to the league. And I want to make an emphasis on last year was a bit, right, with Missouri, easy to pick on, Dennis Gates, don't win a league game, blah, blah, blah. Probably even got to the point where it was like, hey, this bit's kind of old. But I'll be honest, it was pretty awesome to go the whole deal, right? You don't win a league game. You lose to, who was it, Jackson State? Yeah, Jackson State. But there's no bid here. Like, folks, Missouri's good. They're no joke. They're 16-4 overall. They're 5-2 in the league. Currently tied for third with Florida. I think they would hold the tiebreaker, if I'm right, over Florida. Yeah, they would hold the tiebreaker because they beat Florida 83-82 a couple games ago. Yeah, I don't see a reason why Missouri can't finish top four easy, double bye in the league. I think latest projections on NCAA tournament seed-wise, I think had them in the top four seed line, which they should be. Tamar Bates is a beast, averaging 13.4 points a game. He had 26. Yeah, he had 26 the other night against Ole Miss. Lightning shooter grill. He had 22, giving Ole Miss a third straight loss. They beat them 83-75. They're cooking with gas, people. So shout out Dennis Gates. Shout out to our loyal listener, Big Bill. He's been chomping at the bit to, quote unquote, send emails in with a couple questions for the show. Which I'm still waiting on. We have an email. It's just goldstandardcbb@gmail.com. So that's for anybody. If you want to send an email there, you can do it. You can send us texts, voice memos. We don't really care. We don't have an Instagram account. We do have a Blue Sky account. So if you want to follow us there, go for it. But yeah, man. Tamar Bates, like I said, averaging 13.4 points a game. Mark Mitchell's right there with 13 a game. Grill's at 12. So, you've got Anthony Robinson. You got 4 guys averaging double-digit points a game. And, minutes-wise, distributed pretty well. You've got your starting 4 or 5 guys who are all averaging about 20 minutes a game. But, after that, it's pretty healthy. Yeah, you have to applaud them if you're being realistic. They're whooping tush. I was even looking at their schedule a couple minutes ago, and let's see, they've got Mississippi State. I think this is their week where they don't have a weekday game. Yeah, so they'll play Saturday against Mississippi State. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't put the clamps on them. Toss-up game against Tennessee next Tuesday, the 5th. They'll be either a Tuesday or Wednesday. A&M at home should win. Oklahoma, Georgia, Bama, Arkansas, South Carolina, Vandy. 11 games, including the Cats, to end the regular season. I don't see why they couldn't easily win 9 of those games. Maybe 8. Because I was going to say maybe your real toss-up games are Tennessee, Bama. I'm not even going to say Kentucky because I have more thoughts on them. Maybe Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's good. That's another team I probably need to give more shout-out to. Yeah, Vanderbilt's good too. I don't think it's a joke that you beat Tennessee and Kentucky in the same week. At home, whatever. So but you're 16-4, 4-3 in conference for a reason. It's not a mistake. Your record is what your record is. God, Jason Edwards for Vanderbilt, friggin' lighting it up, 17 points a game, averaging, shooting at a 45.7% clip. Good night. Ugh. AJ Hoggard had a good game too. He's averaging 10 points a game. Leads their team 4.5 assists. Who they got? This is their week off too. So they've got Oklahoma Saturday. They'll probably win that one. It's at Oklahoma, unless something weird happens. At Florida. Florida's pretty good. Shout out Donkey of the Week too for Todd Golden somehow escaping the charges, I guess. It's true. If you win, you get charges dropped against you. I won't go deep into that. It's pretty frustrating stuff. But whatever. Gets off because he's winning. If he was losing, I don't think we'd be seeing an attorney statement talking about everything's great. So I could see Vanderbilt making a run. Gosh, the league is so freaking deep. It's wild to see Auburn and Alabama, but Auburn's 6-0, Bama's 6-1. Then you start getting 2 losses, 3 losses, 4 losses. And there's old sweet Arkansas and South Carolina at the very bottom. Yeah, man, I think 9 to 10 teams easy should be able to get into the tournament. Yeah, shout out to SEC. Crushing it. All right, let's move on to the Cats. Just an absolute poop fest. Last 2 games. Lost at home to Alabama, 102-97. Lost on the road to Vanderbilt, 74-69. The Bama game, I wasn't, I was frustrated. Losing sucks. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's your grandma's rec league team and they're all in wheelchairs and you lose to them, or if you lose the number 1 scoring offense in Alabama. losing sucks. I got heckled a little bit of like, oh, you're getting soft for losing. Like, I mean, you can, whatever. You can say I'm getting soft of like, say like you're spin zoning the loss of Alabama. I'm just saying I don't. First off, it was just a really good game aesthetically to watch when you're watching two teams fly up and down the court, putting buckets up. That's great. I love that. And if you're going to lose a 102-97 game because you are actually scoring points and you're not stinking up the gym because you're throwing up bricks off the side of the backboard, then like, so be it. I mean, Alabama could easily make another Final Four run and do the daggum thing again. So, yeah, there was just one moment where it was tied at 81, and I think for the next 2 minutes, Bama went on like a 9-0 run, and they never looked back, which basically carried over into the Vanderbilt game. And the Vanderbilt game was maybe the most lethargic, uninspired basketball I've watched Mark Pope team play this year. I think we made fun of Colin Man the other day about, not doing a shoot-around in Knoxville. And we're all like, what do you mean you didn't do a shoot-around? Like, what? Apparently, Kentucky kind of pulled the same thing, but a very unenergized, uninterested shoot-around before the game. I mean, when I say that, we're talking about that like 2 hour period literally before the game starts, which, take it or leave it, however somebody wants, can be a sign that if you're throwing up clunkers right before the game's about to start as a team, might not be a great sign. And you know what happened? After the first 10 minutes of Vanderbilt, Kentucky, they were flying up and down the court. Like, refs were letting them play. I don't think they actually called the first foul in the game until there was 8 minutes left in the first half. So they legitimately were like, yep, we're taking a step back. We are intentionally getting out of the way. You can play. Be physical if you want. And Kentucky's game's not really be physical. They're more of a finesse team. So I think Pope and his staff, players have all had to try to figure out, how do you play physical? But also, like, we want to play the system that we run, that we spend so much time, in the preseason preparing on. We want to execute this well. A lot of the Zoom action stuff we've described versus like the SEC, I think, and it always pretty much has been in history, it's just been a physical league. I mean, take the Tennessee and Auburn game. I mean, I think halftime it was tied at 20. I don't remember what the exact halftime score, but two teams who just leaned on their defensive efficiency to try to get them through, at least the first half. Offense picked up a little bit in the second half for both teams, but that's just not really Tennessee. That's not really Kentucky. And so Vanderbilt, yeah. But I think a lot of the other teams in the league outside of Kentucky just have more athletes and are stronger, faster, more physical. So I think they can push the agenda a little bit on, hey, we may not be super physical as an Auburn or a Tennessee on a defensive side, but like when we play Kentucky, we're really going to put the clamps down as much as we can. So pretty much like each team has that Kentucky's lost to in their, what are they now? They're 14-5, 3-3 in the league. So, I mean, in their 5 losses, it's all pretty much been the same script. So we're talking Clemson, the Ohio State game, at Georgia, Bama, Vanderbilt, have all had the same idea, which is we're going to extend our defense out past the 3-point line and as close to pretty much half-court line, if not full-court press, and make them as uncomfortable as possible, sticking to them, grabbing them, holding on to them, like, unless a ref calls it, then, like, whatever. But we're, like, man-to-man, we're switching as much as possible so that they just have a really hard time running a free-flowing movement offense. This is really dictated on the center activating and executing all their actions, which would be Amari Williams, who's been, frustrating, needless to say. So that's Vanderbilt's game plan. They did a really good job. Like I already mentioned, 10 minutes in the game, we're actually scoring points, and it was going pretty well. In the next 10 minutes that Pope had even emphasized on in post-game presser, he said, we've noticed a trend where in the second 10 minutes of the first half, we just, collapse. Which I'm like, okay, well, if you've noticed the trend, and then, why does it keep happening? He's even said, he's like, I don't really know the answer. He's like, it's kind of a combination of fatigue. We've got several guys with injuries, which has already been announced for tomorrow night. Lamont Butler's out. Kirk Kriisa, who's been out, will stay out. And then Andrew Carr is questionable, but it's already been said he's probably going to be out for a couple weeks. So, great. You're out a starting point guard, and you're out your starting four-man. So, he's like, injuries, fatigue. He's like, honestly, and probably just some, attention. I don't know if it's, disinterest in the game, if it's you just kind of stop for a couple plays, and I would put that one on Amari Williams. Any Kentucky fan, if they're at least objective, would agree. Amari Williams just kind of checks out on some plays. And you're like, what? Why? If you're tired and need a breather, that's one thing. I get that. But I watch him play, my man somehow mysteriously gets concrete blocks for his shoes. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Did you get the concrete block 25s on that play? Those are awesome. You didn't move an inch. You just let the dude barrel down the driving lane, to get an easy layup. But, hey, the next play, got a new pair of sneakers, Jordan 11s, and all of a sudden he can fly. Swats a ball. It's no business that ball needs to be near that rim. I'm like, what the why did you take off the play before? But it's in moments that are crucial that stuff is happening. It's not just the, we're 2.5 minutes into the game, and you just, you're not really even winded at that point because the game just started. You just, it's so fascinating. I would love to know if there is a study ever done, because I would read or watch it, however it was produced. So, back to my point, Pope's and his staff are trying to figure out, why? Why are we falling apart in the second, or in the 10-minute mark and on in the first half? There's a disconnect. And honestly, in their other games, that even if they won, there's been multiple times that they've been down and have had to claw their way back after halftime. The depth rotation, starting to rear its ugly head here. Pieces that shouldn't really be logging double-digit minutes. Travis Perry, Trent Noah, now they're getting more run because of injuries. Those dudes are freshmen. They shouldn't. In my mind, they're getting 7 to 9 minutes a game for purely breather purposes. But now you're talking about seeing those dudes probably getting double-digit minutes in Knoxville and on until guys are healthy again, which really stinks. And that's putting it lightly. Going back to the game, at least with Vanderbilt, just really pathetic first half. They come back out in the second half, and wouldn't you know it, the first 10 minutes, bang, you were down 14, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, we're up 7. 57 to 51 at that moment, and you're like, okay, I think are going to close this thing out. Hoops said it. I felt the same way. Actually, at one point in my life, I would have told you I hated Vanderbilt basketball over any team in the country, all because of Kevin Stallings. Why? I don't know. For whatever reason, I could not stand them. But now, like Hoops talked about, you don't really think much of Vanderbilt until they beat you. And then you're really annoyed. And I will admit, for an hour after the game was over, I was fuming. Combination of losing to Vanderbilt, the style we played, which is just terrible. Looked like a JV high school team for quite a bit of the game. So, yeah, 57-51. At that point, Vanderbilt hit back-to-back threes. Just a lackadaisical approach to defense, which was we're going to slack off the big men, but that was like a coaching thing. Hey, we're going to give the big men, space for threes because numbers tell us they don't really shoot it well, big men-wise, from three. And you know what ended up doing? I think they went 5 for 9. So, cool. Like, you don't really even get a hand in their face. You give them space to launch it, and they made them. They made them pay. I think Vanderbilt as a team got up over 33s. Cats got up 25. So it's this other frustrating thing of we're not shooting the amount of threes that Pope said he wanted to. I mean, the man said he wanted to average anywhere from 35 to 40 attempts a game. And I mean, like, we're probably averaging 25 a game and hoping you make double digits. Like, his efficiency rating is we need to put up more shots. You could give it to the Vanderbilt defense and that night and other teams where because they're extending their defense out so much and they're making it so difficult for guys like Kobe Brea, Jackson Robinson, and so on to really have a hard time getting off shots and giving them no space to shoot, which then makes Kentucky a little bit one-dimensional because now they're like, crap, we need to drive the lane, try to get to the bucket. They don't really have any dudes who can get to the bucket other than Ortega away, kind of. But Ortega's the kind of guy where if he's driving, like he's going to the bucket. He's not driving to create space and then dish out. It's just, so be it. That's just the way he's played. But ideally the offense in that moment, which is if you're going to take Kentucky off of the three-point line and make them drive, ideally you would have a guy or two on the floor at all times who can either get to the bucket and get their own shot, or they're driving and pulling in the defense of somebody maybe from the corner to be able to toss out to the likes of like Ainsley Almanor to get you a corner three. It's not happening because, again, have a really hard time driving the lane. And then if you want to go to the big man like Ainsley Almanor, you're like, dude, you're 7 feet tall, 260-something, like basically pure muscle. And he like floats away when he has the ball down low. You're like, hey, man, you're a foot and a half away from the rim, just dunk it on their head. He floats away, and it's really annoying. I guess to circle back to that moment of 57-51, 2 threes, next thing you know, the next 2 minutes, I think Kentucky would end up, what was the final score? Well, I mean, final score was 74-69, but they just would struggle for those next couple of minutes. Got some buckets thanks to Ortega away. Pretty much kept them in the game. But the last 2 minutes of the game, they wouldn't score another bucket because they would turn it over 3 straight possessions, and it was embarrassing. So that is pretty much the week summed up for Kentucky. It's just really embarrassing and poorly executed basketball. I just love this damn sport so much. Like, I love this team so much. That's what makes it really stink. And I hate losing. I'm really, really scared about the Tommy Bowl. I don't know, man. Starting point guards out, starting power forwards out. You need those guys to execute offense. I really don't see how 2 freshmen are going to, they're not going to pull a Reed Shepherd, Rob Dillingham. They're not those type athletes. So don't worry, Vol fans. You're not going to see a Reed Shepherd 2.0 go out and hit however many hit 7 threes. Or even like Justin Edwards. I think he hit 4 or 5 threes that game last year. But it's not that, and that's fine. I love Pope. I love that he's our coach. I love the system that he wants to run. But obviously this year it's just different when you don't have that many athletes. And, okay, you got to figure it out. One comment about Common, and I'll wrap it up. I hope we beat him to smithereens when he shows up here. He got asked a question after their loss to Oklahoma, and they're like, hey, Kentucky game's coming up next Saturday. What do you think? For a split second, he had me. Split second, because he was like, yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, probably going to be pretty emotional. Maybe not. He didn't use that word. He may have said, yeah, it'll be a little bit. He's like, be in town, see some old friends, grab dinner, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, you had me. Oh, you had me for a split second. Nah, bro. If I was in that arena up at Rupp, it'd be double birds, baby. Even if I was up in the nosebleeds and you couldn't see me. All day blazing. Upper deck. Yeah, you would actually need to call or text me if you really wanted to know my true thoughts. It wouldn't be clean or legal on this podcast. So, I've went a long time, 30-some minutes. Yeah, let's have a time. Let's have an absolute time tomorrow, live with my boy Bobby Hoops. I can't wait. I actually swore off the Tommy Bowl a couple years ago because I had that moment as an adult where I was like, hey, I don't have to do this. I don't have to get heckled by college kids who say some, well, again, not appropriate for the airwaves. I was like, yeah, I don't have to be here. I can just watch it from my TV or from my couch and on the TV. But I'm excited. I tend to love my space watching games as much as I do love in person at the arena. But man, nothing beats in person. I just really hope it's a good game and it's not a blowout. At least for my sake, it's not Tennessee beating them by 30. If that happens, I don't know, probably just go to a bathroom stall and go hide and cry a little bit and just text Hoops to, meet me outside. So, all right, gang. Thanks for tuning in. We love you guys. Catch you later. Scratch.